All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Cohort Innov8 second monthly meeting. And this month, we are so blessed to be able to welcome Deborrah Ashley to our meeting this evening. She is the LinkedIn Black Belt. I could personally attest to that because Deborah was the person who coached me into really getting back into LinkedIn after I had not been working for about 5 or 6 years. And thanks to her and her guidance and her ability to really know how to utilize that platform, I was able to get noticed by a recruiter and hired at Microsoft. And so I owe quite a bit of my current trajectory and success to the knowledge that this woman has. She's amazing, and she has gone on to continue to expand her business, and now specifically focuses on helping organizations really, have a voice on LinkedIn, become authorities on the platform, and really stand out and be successful at using it to their fullest advantage. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Deborah to our session tonight.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. And I can tell you, as I heard everyone going around and sharing their stories and their experience, we all start as beginners, right? So as Jamie said, I'm Deborrah Ashley, the LinkedIn Black Belt. About 6 years ago, I left a 20-year corporate career to chase my dream, pretty much chase my passions. I ended up on the online space. I didn't know there was, this world of business owners and professionals online who are amazing at what they do, but they just didn't know how to market what they do. So when I first kind of started online, I only knew about Instagram. I was on Instagram just like, most people sharing content and pictures and things like that. And one day, just to kind of give you some backstory, one day I went on LinkedIn because remember back in the days before Microsoft, BM, right? Before Microsoft, LinkedIn was just mostly about resumes and recruiters. So I just went up there. I went on LinkedIn to update my profile just to say I'm out of the, quote unquote working world. And I updated my profile just to share what I did. Similar story to what Nat went through. 2 days later, 2 people reached out to me and they wanted help with a marketing plan. And of course, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what is this about? So it was really, really interested. And I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but initially I had imposter syndrome. So I was just out here, updating my profile. I didn't expect someone to reach out to me to help them with something that I pretty probably didn't know too much about, but I do have a marketing background. So from there, I went on to build my own personal brand on LinkedIn. It has been pretty successful, I must say. I've done everything from helping companies, as Jamie said, to help them with their own LinkedIn. I've done lectures at universities. I've been in publications. I've done speaking engagements, all of those different things. So I'm super excited to share with you guys, some of the things that I have done to build my brand on LinkedIn and how you can use it in order to, I think the biggest thing as we went across the room, the biggest thing would be to help you to use it to position yourself as an industry expert or a thought leader. So the way I typically present, I like to keep things interactive because as you're asking me questions, I can share and it's going to benefit you the most. So if you have any questions throughout, you can always comment in the chat. So I'll do, maybe about 20 to 30 minutes. We'll do some content. And then from there, if you have questions, we can go into questions, right? So as we discuss this whole brand like a black belt, I want to share 3 tools that you're probably not using now that's really going to elevate your game on LinkedIn and get you found a lot quicker, whether you're looking for speaking opportunities, training opportunities, to get into universities, things like that. It's going to really help you. And as you can see, LinkedIn, every few months, there's something new going on LinkedIn. So over the past year, pretty much after the pandemic hit, LinkedIn has been gearing up to make sure they're seen as a media platform. I remember when I did a presentation this time last year, pretty much, LinkedIn had 600 million registered users. It now has a little over 722 million registered users. The only thing, there's only about 40% of those people who actually are considered active. And LinkedIn will consider you active if you have logged into the platform or posted or just been active within the past month. It's not even the past week, but the past month. So the thing about those 40%, out of those 40, only 10% share content on the platform. And when we think about opportunities on LinkedIn, we have 9 billion impressions on the feed every single week. So if you can imagine a small percentage of those people are sharing content, but there's 9 billion views. And I was extremely surprised, and this is something that can happen for you guys too. Last year I had 1 million content views, which is incredible. But you can see how that happens. If you're active on the platform and if you're sharing content on a regular basis, because a lot of people are not doing that, then you have an opportunity. So let me go ahead and share the screen, and then we're going to kind of like get into our first tool that I want you to really pay attention to. And with hopes, as you share more content on the platform, you're going to see your numbers grow. Obviously, numbers are a super important tool as you're measuring data. So let me go ahead and share the screen. Okay, so the very first tool that I want, and I'm going to put this in the chat so you can at least bring your own up to measure. And don't even like if it might be low, not a big deal. This is something that we use to, let me see if I can't find the chat. Can someone send me a message really quickly so the chat can come up for me? All right, fabulous. So you can measure, the very first thing you want to check, and it's really going to help you to determine how healthy your LinkedIn profile and your presence is. It's your social selling index. It's just a score. 4 things it measures, as you can see, and if you want to bring your own up just to see, establishing your professional brand on LinkedIn. And that's pretty much, a lot of that is based on how well have you filled out your profile. Mostly that's all it really is. And then the second thing is finding the right people. So now finding the right people is more about if I'm sending connection requests to people, if I am having conversations and connecting, are they saying yes to the connection request? Because if you're sending connection requests to say, 100 people in a month and only 20 people are accepting, then it's telling LinkedIn that you're not either targeting the right people or you're just sending connection requests willy-nilly. And then we have engaging with insights. I'm not quite sure, but most people have that as the lowest score. And that just pretty much means putting out the right content that's relevant to your audience. And then the last one, obviously, I can imagine Jamie probably has this through the roof too, building relationships. LinkedIn is a platform that they want to keep their users on as much as possible on the platform, because in the end, like if you guys want to share in the chat, take a guess why LinkedIn wants to keep as many people on the platform for the longest time possible. I'll have you tell me in the chat. All right, let's see who has it. Take a guess. Sales is a piece, advertising. So what they can say, if someone comes to advertise on the platform, let's see, Procter and Gamble, whatever, Google wants to advertise on LinkedIn, they wouldn't, but they can say, okay, we have 40% of people who use LinkedIn on a regular basis, they earn between 75 to 150,000, and they spend 5 hours a week on LinkedIn. So they want to make sure, it's almost like being a productive member of LinkedIn. They want to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to build relationships, and they will reward you for that. So that is the first tool. Now, the way we're going to focus on establishing your personal brand, right? Your professional brand. The best way to do that, obviously, is to start to pull together that profile. So LinkedIn within itself is a search engine. Every single day, someone is typing in certain terms along with locations and skill sets to find people like you. And sometimes you may realize someone found me on the platform, but I have no idea how they found you. this is what they do. They pretty just like it. Say if I'm looking for a keynote speaker, wellness, they go under that. And then we're just going to find all the people who have their profile optimized, who are keynote speakers in the health and wellness field. So the best way to do that, based on your expertise, our goal is to now plug in those specific keywords. You have to know what keywords that your people are looking for. So when we think about the keywords that we want, the areas that we want to plug it in, we want to plug it into the headline. And the headline format, it's a pretty simple format. I would even encourage this whether you work for someone else or whether you work for yourself. I would encourage you to start with your title. And then I would encourage you to explain exactly what you do. And it's obviously based on the end user. It's what exactly you do. And then the big category that it's under. So if you can see the same format I have, but at the same time, you want to pay attention. If you want more speaking and training engagements, then you want to put speaker and trainer inside your headline. Another area that's going to be very important is going to be the keywords in your about section. Now, what I'm going to say, we want to do it the right way. We don't want to have our about section read like a resume. We want to more humanize our brand. So that means not necessarily talking in the third person. That means not letting it sound like a resume, proven results, detailed oriented, things like that. And a lot of people do it, I was guilty of it at one point. So it's just really going in there and changing it. Share the story. What are you passionate about? Share your narrative. Turn it into a piece that when someone reads it, and they're not going to read the entire thing, when they read it, they almost feel connected to you and they want to reach out and learn more. So if you can see what I have, I'm positioning not only myself as an expert, but my job is to get people interested in LinkedIn, although I don't work for LinkedIn. But every time you write the sentence in your about section, every single sentence, the only job is to get them to open it up and see more. So think of that very first sentence as a sentence that you want to grab their attention. And yes, it can be about you, but the about section is about that end user. What are they going through? What are they thinking about? That's how we want to position it. So then the next place we want to share some keywords in order to get found would be your experience area. And you can plug it into the headline, keynote speaker or trainer or instructor, and you can plug it into the narrative too, the experience area. Another place you want to put some keywords would be your volunteer. If you have volunteer experiences, I always recommend filling out this piece because what's going to happen, it helps you to connect with that end user. Even if you volunteered somewhere, could be 5-10 years ago, still put that down because it establishes a connection. So that's where they're going to pick up keywords, and then also your skills and endorsements. Let me touch on this really quickly before I go to the other tool. So what's going to happen, I'm going to bring up, who wants to volunteer really quickly? I'm going to bring up someone's, their skills and endorsements. And all right, Sharon, we're going to look yours up. Because what we don't want to do is have things like Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, things that are just, we know that Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word. We want to be very specific with how we're positioning ourselves based on our real expertise. So let's go down to your skills and endorsements area. Right, Sharon did it right. So the only thing that I would change for Sharon, she did a lot of the community outreach. I would probably be more specific with that. What does that really mean? But I do really like program development and nonprofit. The only thing I would then do is I would go into this and narrow it down to maybe 12 or 13. Don't make it so many, because as people are, they're endorsing you for certain things, you want them to be very specific with what they're endorsing you for. If you have 20, 25, even 50 different skills, now it's going to be all over the place. The goal in order to build social proof is to get these to 99. Anything over 99, now they can't, it could be 100, it could be 500 endorsements, but no one knows. But if we only see something like 32, you could have worked in nonprofit for the past 20 years, but it doesn't position you as an expert because not a lot of people endorsed you for it. And I know it sounds crazy, guys, but it's just something that people look at these numbers and that's how they make a decision, right? Another piece where you want to make sure that you're really strong are your connections. So this is good. If you have 200 or 300 connections, now people almost don't take you seriously on the platform. But anything over 500, the same thing here. It could be 800, it could be 2,000. It will say 500 plus. That means that you are active on the platform. All right, so that's tool number one. So you want to keep a great eye on your, your social selling index. And if you want to, check into it every once in a while, most people on average, does anyone want to share what their score is? I'll tell you, mine's pretty high because I'm just on the platform a lot, but on average, people have between 50 to 60. So if you're willing to share what your score is, let's take a look. And then if you want to access this just to see how well you're doing, all you have to do is Google social selling index and it takes you directly to the link. All right, so Jamie shared that. The second tool, guys, that I really love, and this is something that I always encourage, especially if you're looking to build that professional brand and stand out as a thought leader, that would be LinkedIn Live. Not everyone has access to it, but you can apply for it. And the way to get it really quickly, because LinkedIn's not just opening it up for every single person, because they want to make sure that you're going to use it. So the way to apply for it is to make sure that you either have video that you've put out on the platform before. And if you maybe you use Facebook and maybe you use Instagram, but just have some video content out there, because as part of the application, they're going to ask you for links to where you've already shared video. But that's going to be a really great way for you to position yourself as an expert, because now people are connecting with your voice, with your passion, with your face. They're really making that connection. It's kind of hard to make a connection when you just see words, unless you're a really good storyteller. But if you have a video up there, and I wouldn't suggest doing anything more than a 60-second to 90-second video, keep it really short and simple. If you have video up there and you're always showing up with your expertise, you're going to start to stand out on the top of someone's mind each and every time. So LinkedIn Live is something that I enjoy it. I don't use it as much, only because you have to go through a third-party streaming. Unlike Facebook Live, when you can just press, start on your phone. With LinkedIn, you have to go through Restream or I think BeLive is still around, but you have to go through a third party. But that's going to be something really, really good for you guys. All right, so the next thing that I would suggest that's going to really help build buzz for your brand are newsletters. So we have, and I'm going to show you the difference. Let me just go into my network. So we have different things. We have regular posts. Obviously, these are the regular posts. You have about 1,300 characters. You can just share some information based on your expertise. I always say, focus on your expertise. Think about what your audience needs the most. When you share your content, you can even think about what are the top 10 questions that they may have that surrounds my expertise, and you can create content from it. So you have your posts. Your posts are going to be, something that the algorithm shares with others. It's not exactly something that Google will find. So, if someone Googles a certain topic, like I may have how to use LinkedIn as an accountant to get more clients. And if I put that on the title and an accountant Googles that, they won't necessarily find my post. However, we'll show you the second thing. If I wrote an article about it, then that's something Google will find. Now, obviously, an article is almost like a blog post. It's an extension of your regular post, and it allows you to expand on your thoughts, and it positions you as a thought leader. However, if you have a newsletter, this is something that you can create, and it can go out. We don't want to do daily. That's a little bit too much commitment, right? It can go out weekly, bi-weekly, it can go out monthly, or it can go out quarterly. The specific thing, the reason that the newsletters work, because you are focusing on your subject matter expertise. And the newsletter is going to be only on one thing. So let's say your expertise is social innovation, right? Every time you put out a newsletter, you're going to have a title. So you can say social innovation in this new modern world. Make up a title that's going to be really catchy and very innovative for your audience. You can then start to invite people to subscribe to your newsletter. Every time you publish an article or a post within the newsletter, your audience will be notified that you just published a new newsletter edition. So now you're almost like your own media company. You almost have your own show with your newsletter. So it's almost like an article, but it's going to be just based on that one specific subject matter that you have. And then it's going to position you obviously as an industry leader. And I would even use this newsletter piece to stand out, to position yourself as a resource. So just think of all the questions that your people may have and continue to use the newsletter to position yourself as the resource. Does anyone have any questions so far? Those are the three big things. If you want me to kind of focus a little bit more on the profile, I will. But let me have the questions that you may have. Even when you're just starting out, what type of things confuse you? And I'll see if I can get the chat back up.
I just wanted to ask, when you showed Sharon's profile and she had endorsed by, what exactly does that mean?
All right, let me see if I can go back to it since I don't quite recall. So these are the people who pretty much they took their time and they went and they endorsed her. But what's going to happen, as you can see, I don't have the option to endorse her, right? LinkedIn has these, it's almost like safety measures. I can't endorse her if I'm not connected to her. So these are the people who endorsed her, but what's more important about these people, they're highly skilled at community outreach, or they're highly skilled at program development, so it means a lot more. That makes sense? No. It's a way of building social proof. So the only people that she had 48 different people endorse her, but the only people that they showed are the people that are also in that field. So it's almost like your colleagues said amazing things about you. So they added to your social proof. What I'll do.
Sorry, Deborah, can I jump in and say for Joanne? So what happens is, like, I'll get it sometimes, like for people that I'm connected with, I get asked by LinkedIn sometimes when I'm logged in, like, would you endorse Sharon Del Visco for social innovation or community outreach or something? So me, as someone connected to her, I'll be asked if I want to endorse her, and I could say yes or no. And then if I endorse her, that's it. It just kind of goes on her profile, and I become a number on one of her skills and endorsements. But you can, like Deborah said, you can go to someone's profile and endorse them if you're connected to them. And sometimes people do that. I think there have been a lot of people who have done that for me because they want to engage with me more. So yeah, it's a feature that's been there. And I think over the years, it's gotten more important. I don't know what you think about that, Deborah, but before, I think people just kind of clicked it because they didn't know what it was. And now I think more people are being conscious of what that function really means.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely important. Another thing that's going to be even more important that I didn't touch on would be your recommendations, because those are your actual testimonials from the person that you either worked for, you've done a project for, that, and when we talk about testimonials and recommendations, I always like to say, make sure that they are writing recommendations based on the results that they've gotten with you. It's not necessarily about, I like soft-spoken yet compassionate, helping professional. This works for Sharon because she's in the field where that's a requirement. For me, if someone did that for me, then I'd be like, okay, it's not really helping me because results are what my clients are looking for. These are results within Sharon's field. And this, when you read, I can't wait for the world to meet her and I would vouch for her at any moment, like that is a big deal. So, those are the type of things that you want your people to write testimonials about. And you want to also sometimes guide them on, okay, I worked with you on X, Y, and Z project. These are the results that we got. Do you mind writing me a testimonial about our work together? just so that they know specifically. And it's easier for the other person too, because sometimes it's hard for someone to put words together. So if you do the next step to guide them, then they can get it back to you immediately. And then what I always recommend, and Sharon did good with this, you know, I'm going to look at some people's profile and they haven't had a recommend or a testimonial for like a year. I always say over the next 6 months, make sure that you have 2 endorsements for every 6-month period of time, even if you can get it for every 4 months. Because what's going to happen when someone goes down to your profile, if they see something from last year, then that means it's outdated. Anything that hasn't been done recently, we don't know if that's the same thing that you do nowadays. What question do you guys have about your profile?
Deborah, Misty had a question in the chat. She says, can you give us more examples on specific ways to describe our skills? What are some tips for capitalizing on that area?
Are we meaning in the about section, or do we mean on skills and endorsements? And let's look under Misty's. Misty, if you can unmute and let me know how you'd like to position yourself and what's your goal with LinkedIn.
She's not on
LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm probably a super bad example, but you were kind of describing some of these areas, and you looked at Sharon's profile and said you wouldn't just put networking or something, you would be more specific about that.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, I understand what not to use, but what are some words to use that people are looking for? And it doesn't have to be a social work related. If it's easier to give an example of a business industry and what words people are using, that is helpful.
So your only goal is to think about what people are thinking about or what they're searching for. So for example, some people would be searching under keynote speaker. Some people would be searching under trainer. Some people would be searching under leadership executives. You have to know what your people are going to be searching under, and that's where you want to put most of your keywords. But everyone's going to be different, but it's really about understanding your audience and knowing what they want. So that's really the key. A great way
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
A great way to do that is if you can go under jobs and think about a job, and even if it's a project, right? So let's do the search really quickly. Let's do CMO. Make it very, very easy. So we're going to go under jobs. These are what people are hiring for, right? Move it up a little bit. So here's a company doodle. They're looking for a CMO. If you go down, these are all the skills that they have selected. So now you have an idea what skills they're looking for. So let's do, Jamie, your social innovation, correct?
Right.
All right. So if someone is looking for a consultant, they won't necessarily say they're looking for a consultant, but this is really going to help. This might be the same type of term, social good. So these are all the different skill sets that they're looking for. You would want to plug it into your skill area and get more endorsements for that, and then plug it into your about section too. Like I said, I wouldn't suggest Microsoft PowerPoint. It's a given if you're at a certain point in your career, you know it already, but negotiations, public speaking. If you do want to position yourself as a speaker or a trainer, guys, here is something that I would do. I'm going to show you a client. I did her profile overview for her. We're going to do a specific job title almost that says keynote speaker. So now when someone searches that, it has all of your different panel discussions. If you see that we have the word speaker throughout, and it's speaking engagements, it has all the different podcasts. You want to make yourself a separate section as a speaker or a trainer and list all the different things that you've done. It doesn't have to be this detailed with the dates and everything, but you know, as long as you have something to give yourself more opportunity to get found on the platform. What other questions you guys have? I know there's questions. So let's actually, here's a good one. Let's discuss first connections, second connections, and third connections in order to get found. So when you think about the first connections of your network, and I can tell you the interesting thing, and I believe the same thing happened with Jamie, most of the clients who have reached out to me or who have come to me, they are not my immediate connections. They found me because someone in their network either liked my post or they shared my post. So the beauty with LinkedIn, as long as you're putting out the right engaging type of post, you can get someone to like your post and you would have never met the other person. They could be a third connection. So let me explain the difference. So we have first connection, second connection, and third connection. With the first connection, those are pretty much the people you're connected with directly. You have, just like, Jamie and Sharon are connected. When we think about the second connections, your second connection network, they could be connected to Sharon, but they're not connected to Jamie. But Jamie will see them as second connections because Jamie's in the picture. Now we have finally, and sometimes when the algorithm works with you when you're sharing your content, your goal is to get second and third connections liking your stuff. So when you have the third connections pretty much means that you're not connected to them in any way possible. You're not even connected to their second connections, but your second connections are connected to one of their people, if that makes sense. So your second connection network, they're connected to their connections. Does that make sense, guys? In my head, it makes sense, but I want to make sure it makes sense to you. All right, good. I always like saying that. It's almost like the most complicated thing in the world, but my job is to make it sound so simple.
Deborah, were you saying that it matters, like algorithmically, it matters if people who are second and third connections like your posts? Is that what you're saying?
So here's what's going to happen. The algorithm's only job is to say, we're going to start to boost those posts of people who are keeping others on the platform. They're keeping the conversation going. So let's kind of like give an example. I don't know what the point system is, but I know, okay, anyone can like your post, right? Not a big deal. However, if someone takes the time and they put a comment on your post, now it's sending a signal to the algorithm that, okay, this person is creating conversation. However, we can take it to a second step. And this is when you think about if someone comments on your post, you may have 3 comments, guys, but you want to make it almost immediately respond back to them. And when you respond back to them, maybe ask them a question so now they can respond again. So now when the algorithm sees that you're having conversations within your post, they're like, okay, wait a minute, we need to share this with more people because she's bringing people to her platform. So then now you're getting in front of second connection people because your first connections are having conversations with you. And as people are scrolling down their feed, they will see the response. And I'll show you an example really quickly. Let me go to my content. I'm going to show you some posts that had not a lot of, 50 to 100, I'm going to say not a lot of likes. However, and it's not very, let me scroll all the way down to one that was interesting to me. Look at this, 75 likes, 38 comments, and 25,000 views. So, and these are my people, right? Do you dim your light to make others feel secure? I knew that was going to start having conversation. And I pretty much told I told the story about something that happened to me in the beginning of my career where my boss pretty much stole my work and he put it off as his own. That's going to get people pumped up because it happens way too much. So when we look at the comments, we have people who, I'm going to find some of the second connection. So these are people I've never met before. However, they found it very important. See if I can see, this person is a third. Now he's telling, actually, did I respond to him? So this person I've never met before, he's a third connection and he's talking about that he dimmed his light. What's perfect though, I did respond, but then someone else who doesn't know him, she decided to make it her business to respond to him too, which is kind of cool. This person is a second connection. So most likely one of my first connections, she saw the post. And then Ray, well, bless her heart, because now she's also engaging on the conversation. So she's creating this entire party for me. like she's almost doing the work, and then here's another person. So as you can see, it just became a whole connection. So even though, and this is in my eyes, guys, even though it didn't have a lot of likes and comments, the third connections and everyone else, it grew into a 25,000 view post. So you always just want to encourage conversations. And this is something you can do as a cohort too. If you know that, like if you guys want to start sharing content and you know, Sharon can say, hey guys, I'm going to share something at 5 o'clock today. I'd appreciate it if you like it, you know, or just have conversation with me. And you just need maybe 2 or 3, and you can really get the algorithm going, and it's going to expand your reach. Your job is just to really get others to see those posts, because sometimes your immediate audience may not care about it. But you know, if we want to have this certain level of impact on the world, our only job is to make sure the right people get to our content and our conversations. Okay. Was that helpful on that part? All right, so what other questions do you have? Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself since the chat part's not coming up for me.
This is Sarah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So what would be a good time span? I know you said something along the lines of, I can't remember if it was like every 2 to 3 months, or there's like a algorithm where things start to expire. So what would be a good time span for like newsletters? Because I'm not a writer at all, but I do want to keep my content fresh on LinkedIn. So as it relates to me capturing my audience, what would be a good, maybe monthly or bi-weekly newsletter? Like what would be a good
Yeah,
fit to
I would
keep
do
that
it
fresh?
monthly. Keep in mind though that the newsletters are not going to get a lot of reach. Your posts are what the algorithm sends out to get a lot of reach. Your newsletter builds thought leadership. So, you know, obviously the first thing you want to do when you start using LinkedIn, you have to think about, what are my goals? If your goal is to build thought leadership, get on more stages, get more interviews, things like that, then yes, your newsletter and your articles, but it's just not going to get shared a lot by the algorithm, but you can start to build an audience around your work. But monthly is fine. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
Fabulous. You're welcome.
So the topic for that you choose for the newsletter, I'm guessing, is something that could drive people to your profile and connect with you. So should it be about the thing that you're most passionate about, or about things that are important professionally? I'm not sure I understand like how you choose the topic for the newsletter.
Well, tell me, what's your subject matter expertise?
Well, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is my passion. It's a part of my job as a event planner, because I have a really great boss who lets me pursue things that don't necessarily fit completely in my job description for her. But you know, I provide training on healthy and healthy versus unhealthy relationships for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So, I mean, while I love my job and I love my boss, event planning isn't my passion.
Okay.
It's really, you know, about supporting and empowering people with disabilities. So,
Okay. So you would obviously think of, so we're going to have the title of the newsletter, you know, almost like your magazine, right? You don't want, it's not going to be the New York Times, or am I frozen? I don't think. It's not going to be, you don't want a simple name like the New York Times and Newsweek. They already have their brand. You want something that's going to be eye-catching, that's going to be, is it more, that's more like inclusive strategy, right? And so you want to have the entire title of the newsletter. That title is going to stay with you no matter what. Every week, you're going to have a different subject that you talk about. So maybe the subject that you talk about, you know, how to, like something we did with Jamie is how to integrate military spouses in work environments or to understand tech. So you have your own version. I would let it relate to the work environment, because people are very passionate about that right now, because, you know, for a lot of people, how are they working virtually? And I'm sure people are still trying to get used to it. How are companies making that easier for people, you know, to work virtually? So I would have your content around that, because a lot of leaders and companies they're wondering, they don't know. So that would help a lot.
I think you kind of answered my question as well. I was more so thinking because my topics are twofold and I'm serving essentially two populations, or consider myself an ally for LGBT, or boys who consider themselves girls, or Black boys who consider themselves girls,
Mhm.
and also Black girls. And so for me wanting to put content, I'm certainly not an expert as it relates to LGBT, but in wanting to position myself as an ally and as a known ally, and the services and mentors and things that I know is needed in the community as a social worker, I definitely want to put myself out there, so people can not only just be aware, because awareness isn't going to push or motivate people to actually change or make the changes that are necessary in the justice system. So I guess for myself, is that a matter of me pushing out separate contents and keeping that separate, or keeping it the same, like Black girls and LGBT youth of color?
Now, are we saying, do they call themselves trans?
I don't, as an ally, I allow them to tell me what it is or how they identify, because they're in that age of discovery right now. So I don't want to say you're identifying yourself as trans and they may say, no, I'm pansexual, or I don't know how I feel about my sexuality yet. So I just try to be very careful about that. And I think that's something that a lot of people, uh, even for myself in social work, I'm still learning and growing. And I think that that's a topic that a lot of people can identify with in this realm. Like, how do we, in the justice field, um, protect a person's basic right to identify how they identify with, um, without attacking, or without, I'm trying to find the words, without being offensive, if that makes sense.
No, I understand. I have an idea for you. I would create an entire newsletter, and you can even put it out monthly, where you're interviewing different people, and they can you're just asking them questions, and they can answer all the questions that other people are wondering. They don't want to offend. How should we typically address? How should we ask the questions to see what you want to be called? Like, I would take someone, and I would even take that into a LinkedIn Live series. So maybe every week or every month you interview a different person, and now you're just answering questions. You take that LinkedIn Live and you create it into a newsletter, and I know there'll be a bunch of people who would want to subscribe to that.
Yeah, because I genuinely want to know. There's a lot of terminology we're trying to get away from, like when it comes to working with the kids in our population. We're trying to do away with prostitution as it relates to CSEC youth, because there's no such thing as a child prostitute. We're trying to do away with a lot of terminology, and dealing with our pronouns. We're saying she and her, or allowing people to self-identify. And I don't think there's enough conversation being had amongst social workers about, when we're working with our youth, where we are mentally with our own bias. And I kind of want to do the newsletters, but I don't want to lose a lot of followers either,
Why
if
would you
that
lose
makes sense.
followers?
Because I don't know, that's a fear. So I'm not certain why I would, but it's a fear that I have, because it's not a topic that I see a lot of people talk about, but it's something that needs to be discussed.
So what would happen if you lost followers?
Well, I mean, that would defeat the purpose of me trying to get the algorithm up, right, and get the message out. I'm
No,
assuming.
because as you lose the wrong followers, you're going to gain a gang load of the right followers.
Okay, that makes sense.
Our goal, I mean, you're going to get some hate, clearly, right? But our goal is to always attract people into our life that they're excited and just as passionate, and they're going to champion for us. And they're going to talk about us in rooms that we've never even been in, and they're going to promote us. Our goal is to surround ourselves with those people, not those people who are, you know, we're afraid that if we say the wrong thing, all of a sudden they have a problem with us. That's not conditional. That's conditional love. And it sounds like your platform and your brand is about unconditional love.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just even about saying the wrong thing. It's about being receptive to that criticism when you do say the wrong thing, and being apologetic and willing to learn in your ignorance. And I say the same thing as it relates to just being Black, because for a lot of people in the LGBT community, there is no separation.
Right.
And so if I'm Black and I identify myself in the LGBT community, that's just what it is. And so for a lot of justice workers that I've worked with, a lot of government officials, they don't realize that the scarcity of services is a sort of oppression, if that
Yep.
makes sense. Like if we have LGBT youth who identifies as female, and she isn't provided the platform to, hey, if I'm going to have to end up going to a group home, I have to go to a group home that is for males. And that's not how I identify. That is doing more of a damage or a trauma. We're not opening up conversations like that in our realm. And so I kind of want to use my platform for that, because to me, this is all about criminalizing Black girls.
Right.
This is what this is. And if we're not opening ourselves up as agencies and innovators and agents of change, we continue the systems of oppression.
Oh yeah, I think that would be an amazing newsletter. But just know there will be a lot of people with criticism, but if I mean, you know, we've been placed into this world to for a purpose and to impact others, and we can't let other people stop us from doing that. So as long as you're okay with that, yeah, I think it would be an amazing idea. That could get you a lot of press.
Yeah, good.
And I would probably get a lot of hate mail too.
No, but more great press. So, you know, you almost have the conversation that you're having. It's going to create this ripple effect. It's going to have a lot more people talking about it because they didn't realize.
Yeah. So it is getting close to 9 o'clock, and I don't want to take too much more of your time, Deborah. Does anybody have any other questions as we start wrapping up here? Don't see anything in the chat. All right.
Any
Deborah, did you?
contact information?
Sorry?
Would you be willing to give your contact information?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to, you can either find me by doing hashtag the LinkedIn Black Belt on LinkedIn. I also have a free gift for you guys. It's more catered towards those who are looking to, you know, build a business on LinkedIn. It's 10 things and 10 ways that you can, you know, show up on LinkedIn in order to secure 5-figure contracts. So if you, let me do a bit.ly, but yeah, look me up, connect with me on LinkedIn, Deborrah Ashley, or do hashtag the LinkedIn Black Belt. I'll give you my email address too, if you want to reach out. And if
Deborah, I got questions if you were for hire.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do profile overhauls. I do a lot of things. If you want to book a call with me, I'll put that in there too. Meetwithdeborah.com. Hopefully that works. Sometimes I'm like, what is that link? And then here is the gift if you're looking to get inside some organizations for contracts, right? Let me just make sure I have the right one. LinkedIn gift. All right, guys. Yeah, so www.meetwithdeborah.com is to book a call with me. We can talk about your goals and we can figure out how to make sure it happens. I have the gift in there and all of that good stuff. Looking forward to seeing you guys on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much. It was very helpful.
You're welcome. Thanks,
Thank
Mitch.
you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
bye,
so
doctors.
much.